And when you think of it in that way, have you got an example that might illustrate that, Rob, of where you've come across a very different internal problem in an organization versus what perhaps the scientific evidence may be pointing to?
So one thing I've heard, I mean, it's a sort of maybe slightly contentious example. So let's take employee engagements as an example. So there's certainly some academics and many practitioners who think, employee engagement's a slam dunk in that if you increase it, if you improve it, it has these wonderful effects on everything in the organization. It improves performance, retention, creativity, lots of kind of things that might be important for an organization. We don't really know what engagement means. We don't know what it is, but we think we do, but we think we can measure it. So let's say you take the scientific evidence. There is some scientific evidence. It's not great that there is that kind of relationship. People genuinely believe it. What I've heard from many practitioners, not always, but sometimes, is they might look at their internal data. They might look at, for example, engagement scores using one of the many surveys around that measure engagement, and they may try and correlate it, look at links between engagement and those presumed outcomes, performance, absence, turnover, whatever it happens to be. And I've heard many times practitioners say, actually, we looked at all our data of engagement and there's just nothing going on. We couldn't find any particular link. So, units, departments that were high in engagement didn't necessarily have lower absence than other organizational units that maybe had particularly low engagement. So it wasn't, or high engagement. So it wasn't clear. And that's a good example of where there might be a general belief that the scientific evidence or other evidence, or the evidence, particularly from people who sell engagement surveys commercially, they're telling you it's this great thing and it's linked to all these outcomes. You may find in your context, in your organization, it isn't. And it's important to look at that, because if you don't, you might assume that a low engagement score is a problem. And it may be, but unless you look at your organizational data, you're not going to find out. So you shouldn't make that assumption. So that's an example where it's contradictory, and those contradictions are telling you something kind of quite important.